Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Metal Command podcast. Tony here with you, and today I am bringing you an interview with myself and Aska singer George Call. Of course, George has sang in Clovenhoof. He sings in the band Aska, which has a new album that has just been recorded, but isn't coming out for quite some time due to, of course, the ever-wonderful manufacturing delays out there in the music business. He also sang in Omen, and of course, he sings in the band Banshee. So George, it was a lot of fun to have him on. And for those of you that saw the video where I talked about the very bad decision-making by Clovenhoof, George and I talk about that towards the end of the interview. So we definitely go in depth on that as well. And I also sang with George on the last Empires of Eden album, Architect of Hope, which if you go to the interview with myself and Stu Marshall that I just had posted, he was the guy that, of course, headed up that whole project. And George's song was actually right after mine on the album. So with that said, this is myself and George Call of Aska, Banshee, and of course he also sang in Clovenhoof and Omen. Welcome back to the show, and you have a new Aska album recorded, and talk about this new album. Talk about when it'll hopefully come out, and album title, all that fun stuff. So let's talk about the upcoming record.
The new record. It's titled Night Strike. That's the working title, and we believe it'll be the finished title. Mm-hmm. Of course, by the time, the manufacturer, they're saying that they can have the thing out in 12 weeks, but as we all know, they say that, and then when you're in the queue, then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, vinyl production is, 8 months to a year out. So, they kind of suck you in. Now, unfortunately, we could have the album out in a month if we wanted to have this, break it up into CDs first, CDs and downloads, and then later vinyls. But we ended up going that route with the last Clovenhoof when I was in that band. And with Time Assassin, and I think it doesn't serve the band. I think it's better to have all your formats out at once. Yeah. The product available in all the different formats that it's going to take, at one time, so people can, you can take advantage of your launch period, your release period, which is crucial. It's essential. So it's looking like it'll probably be a year. I hate to say that, but it'll probably be a year before the album is out, because the album is actually done, recorded, finished. And I am happy to report that the new Aska is probably our finest moment. It's our 7th album. Our last record was Fire Eater, released in 2013. So we are overdue. This is the longest we've ever gone between records, between releases. And, we're definitely psyched to get it out there. Like I said, it's our finest moment. I think it's 9 or 10 songs. And we've got Keith Knight, long time, Aska bass player from album number 1, singing a track on here, as a bonus to the fans, a surprise. He hasn't sang on record. I think the last time he did was on our 3rd album, 9 Tongues. So bringing him back to vocalize a song, I think everybody will enjoy. I know we do, and it's cool. It gives just a little variety to the proceedings. And Keith is a great singer in his own right. Once again, this album was engineered and produced by Keith Knight and myself. He engineered it, and then we produced it together. And a little secret is that Keith Knight has probably engineered, I'd say, a good 80%, if not more, of the stuff I've recorded for bands over the years, from some of my band, like one of my Banshee records, to you know, 2/3 of my Clovenhoof output, to most of just about everything I've been involved with. Keith has been there by my side, capturing my voice, laying it to the, you know, digital, I mean, tape. I guess that's a misnomer. It's not tape anymore. But, you know, capturing my voice, and he's always been a very good judge of my performances. You know, when I've given it my all, and when I've got better in me still. So we work well together, and this new Aska record is no exception. And I think when people hear it, they will put it up there. I mean, if not as our best release, up there with the most beloved ones. You know, Avenger, Absolute Power.
Right.
I look forward to getting it out there to everybody, and we will support it with videos, and it's just a killer looking release. In fact, last night we were at Keith's working on the layouts for. Hey, who's this beauty walking by in the background? Woo-hoo! I don't know if you saw that. Maybe not, but so that's where we're at with that, and you know, I can't wait to get it out there. I'm ready to start working on the next one, and this one's not even out yet. But
right,
we've got this really great music coming out of us at this point in time, and I want to continue, you know, keep that iron hot, the forge fired up, and, you know, striking it with that metal anvil as much as possible. The hammer, striking the metal anvil with our hammers, and forging more, you know, fire and brimstone there, pure metal steel for the, you know, all the people that are still into this, which so many of us have stuck out. You know, it's amazing how many people have grown up with this music and stuck it out, gone the distance.
Yeah.
You know, here, entered well into adulthood, and we're still, you know, metalheads and loving every minute of it, you know. As much as the mainstream has abandoned us, we don't care. We were never about the mainstream anyway. It was all about the underground and doing things our way, regardless. And if people don't approve, we have this for them, you know. I mean, that's how it always was. I don't know when bands decided to metal bands in particular decided to, we've got it. We need to do what people like. We need to follow the trend. We need to be trendy. It's like, dude, you play metal. How about just don't care and just do your thing and quit trying to appease so many brain dead people out there that don't care anyway, you know?
Right. So why do you feel it's your proudest moment?
Well, because it's like the culmination of everything we've done, you know, in the past, you know, and everything is life is every moment from birth, you know, to present. Every step is a new, it's a learning experience, right? It's
right.
the culmination of everything that's come before. Every misstep you've made helps you correct course. Every positive move you made helps you. Oh yeah, that was good. Let's push that. So this is, you know, and then of course my experience working with so many other bands over the years, you know, Omen and Clovenhoof and Banshee, and, you know, it's made me. It's just exposed me to so much more. You know, it's opened my eyes to different ways of working, different ways of thinking, and whenever I've found something that works in those environments, I always bring them home, you know, to use them in my band, because every band I ever joined, I let them know that Aska was and is always going to be, my priority number one. And it didn't mean that I was any less committed to working with them or pushing, their vision and their band or whatnot. But at the end of the day, it was, it's someone else's band, someone else's band. So, you can be dismissed, removed. Changes can be made that you don't approve of, but you don't have much say. So I always remained committed to my thing, despite outside endeavors. And that's why, just the exposure to those people, how they work, and whatnot, I was able to take the best of that and bring it home to my band while leaving the stuff that I felt was detrimental or didn't work behind.
Right.
I'm not a fan of, for example, I'm not a fan of changing lineups all the time. I like the familiar. I think the metal fans are a different breed. We like continuity in our bands. I don't like to see Judas Priest with one or two original members. I want KK in the band. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want as many people that were there in the early days as possible. I want the original lineups where possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, that's not always doable. People die, people leave, people just can absolutely not work together. They truly have a clash of opinions, ideas. They're different worlds, but
sure.
In my case, I think that's part of the juice. That's part of the seasoning of a band, is the give and take between players and the chemistry that you make together. It's not just one guy saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. Do that. And,
right.
It works for some people. It works, for Megadeth, maybe it works for, but for others, not so much. And I guess I'm old school that way. I like the idea of bands that try to stick together and try to retain their membership as much as possible. And it's an uphill battle, believe me.
Yeah.
We've all fought that fight. And today, with the music being clearly not at the center of anyone's attention on the world stage, some people come in there with the illusion that they're going to be, rock gods overnight, or they're going to make all this money, or they're going to be, instantly famous, or they're going to be, and then they find out that, hey man, being in a metal band is actually more work than that job you were trying to avoid joining a metal band. There's a lot that goes into it, and so they peel out real quick because they don't have what it takes. They don't have the drive, the force, the foresight, the big picture thinking, and the attitude to make it, work or go. That's what you see so many guys, one band, next band, another band, another band, another band, another band. Constantly looking, constantly searching, constantly.
Sure.
And I get it. I get it. I'm not denigrating those people, but certainly there's something to be said for, taking a core group of guys, or guys and gals, as the case may be, or one of the 380 other genders, and coming together and doing your thing and making something cool,
Yeah.
and forming a legacy and a bond, a brotherhood with those guys,
So
those members.
So do you think the time off that you've had from making, it's been 10 years since the last album, do you think that maybe helped recharge things for the band a little bit? Because you ever notice when a band, they don't make an album for quite a long time, but then suddenly in many cases, most cases, when that next record comes out, they've had time to reflect on things, and you come back to it and you have a whole different mindset, and typically the albums turn out pretty good when that happens.
Yeah. In this case, it did. Now, would I say that's ideal? I mean, I'd like to crank out an album as often as possible, but I mean, sometimes it just can't be done. You know, we did have some, you know, lineup changes, and then we had, you know, of course, COVID stopped everybody for a couple of years. We had also life change, everybody getting older, having families and other responsibilities, and then, you know, people having jobs beyond and outside of the band, and you know, so it makes things more difficult. But certainly, the coming back together, is pleasurable. I mean, and it makes for good music. That said, there are some bands that, you know, my last band, for example, Clovenhoof, where we were cranking out an album about every 2 years, or album, you know, we were just whipping them up fast, and it had a potency to it that, you know, and a creativity and that worked. It was good. So I can't say that one is better than the other. I mean,
right.
It's just whatever works. Ideally, I'd like to have, I don't want to wait 10 years between Aska records, but I mean, let's face it, the state of underground metal is not such, even for the bigger bands, or, you know, the B stream bands or whatever. I mean, even they're having a hard time, or not, you know, maybe not meeting all of their goals or life's ambitions doing that. So it's easy to get sidetracked and do something else. And it doesn't help when you've got the entire world getting in on this. Well, let's lock everybody down and up and make them have to take vaccines to travel and let's you know, sink the economy as well as we can, make it as bad as it was 40 years ago in modern times, so that people can't afford to tour and can't afford to do this and can't afford to. I mean, it makes it all an impossible uphill battle that only the most dedicated are willing to continue to undertake.
Yeah.
That said, I'm willing to continue.
Yeah, it's all, you know, it's all the price gouging, you know, going on too with a lot of things, you know, like, you know, the tour buses being, you know, 2,500, $3,000 plus $8 a mile and all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'm talking like per day, right? And it's made things difficult. I mean, you saw the video that Sean and Justin and I did, and we were talking about a lot of that stuff, and it's made it a lot more difficult. I mean, now it's like you have bigger bands, like we can't even like make a profit touring because we show up and, you know, the expenses are like 3 times what we're like with Anthrax. The expenses went up 3 times higher to the point where it wouldn't make any money. It'd be pointless, you know, and that kind of stuff has happened. So you got to be really dedicated, you know, to be able to do something like this. But I think it's cool that you're going back to the band that you've always, you know, been known for the most part, because you were doing a lot of other stuff, you know, over the last, you know, few years. So it's almost like now you can completely focus on this album and really, you know, you don't have any other distractions or anything else going on musically. You could just focus on this record. And I agree with you with waiting to release it until you can have all the formats, because I've always felt that bands will lose sales, because once that album's been out a long time, you're going to put it out on vinyl. You know, the album's already been out and everybody's focused on something else. Right. And
they move on to the latest new release.
Yeah. And the vinyl production, I mean, it's tough, you know. And then you have this thing. Do you want to wait a year on it, or do you want to lose sales and put it out early? You know, you have this conundrum that, you know, a lot of these bands are facing, unfortunately, and that sucks. So,
yeah. So for us, it will definitely be when the turkey's cooked, then we'll put it out there. You know, when all the parts when the full meal is ready, then we'll serve it up. No sense in, you know, bringing out the salad and then waiting an eternity for the main course. Because then you're mad at the restaurant, you're not happy. I mean, I was very upset with the way they handled the release of Call of Time Assassin. I thought that was ridiculous, you know, to put out the CD and then not a word from the label. When will the vinyl be available? You know, and so, you know, what are you gonna do?
I think a
It's
lot
the
of
nature
labels,
of the business.
yeah, a lot of labels, I think that were doing that have really sort of learned their lesson at that point. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, and not only that, but think about this, a lot of that too, because everybody was so, because of COVID and all that other stuff, and people weren't making records. I think labels were also really trying to hurry up the release as fast as possible just to get something out there. And I think, and it's not just the Clovenhoof release. I mean, there's a lot of record labels and publicists. I mean, there was one email from a couple of the record labels because they hire an external publicist most of the time, and I think they're saying the vinyl will come out like 3 months after the album comes out, and it's at that point, it's like
Yeah,
correct. And now the only way that it works is if you have everything out, and then you decide, hey, you know what, we're going to do a different variant of the record, right? That usually works. As as Sean Peck pointed out, that's a comic book industry type thing, but you really have the most sales when you have all the formats available. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, how many, I think there's bands putting out other variants of their album a year later, and it just doesn't sell. It's just how it is. And you got to remember too, it's more expensive, to buy a vinyl record. I mean, let's face it, my copy of Power Slave that I bought for $16 back in 2018 goes for $40, right? I mean, yeah, it gets crazy with that stuff.
It's insane. You'd be surprised, dude. When I got into record buying when I was a kid, they were $5 and $6.
Yeah.
At the armed forces, the base exchange and the post exchange. $5.99. $6, $7. I mean, they were dirt cheap, and the increase on those things. I mean, I think your standard release now, single album, is $25 to $30 for your average
vinyl
release.
Yeah. I would say
a double vinyl now, $40 easy.
What's really funny though about it is that, like CDs still like 10, 12 bucks, dude. They really haven't gone up. Like I just bought an album not long ago and it was like $11, right? I mean, they really haven't gone up too much, but the vinyl thing, I think with the fact that everybody's overloaded, I think the fact that they don't have you don't have as many presses because a lot of them were probably destroyed in the 90s when, people when CDs were like the rage at the time. And
when it seemed the vinyl was dead. Nobody was
exactly.
I mean, it was a collector's thing.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So I think now it became a much bigger thing. Now everybody's embracing that. And it's crazy. Now kids will buy the vinyl before they'll buy the actual CD or even buy the download, which I know sounds crazy, but it got to the point where the labels were like, well, you buy the record, you might pay $40, we'll give you the download with it. I mean, that's kind of some stuff that's been happening depending on which record label is selling the album. So it's, I mean, I totally get it, man. So we'll move on to a different subject, that. Okay.
Let me, you know what, before we move on real quick, let me say this stuff. I never left Aska the whole time I was in that band.
Okay.
And the whole time we were doing shows, we were playing, we were viable. We were working as a band. Maybe not to the extent that we had been in the past,
right?
But the band was still viable, still doing shows, and recording and whatnot. In fact, this the album was recorded. Our new record, Night Strike, was recorded during the pandemic. Is when we started. Well, we've got all this downtime. There's no shows. Good. Let's work on the album. Perfect time.
Yeah.
There was no tours.
Yep.
Prior to that, I was constantly, doing the tours with Clovenhoof, going to Europe, and this. But it presented a perfect opportunity. But I never left that band, and always pushed it, and it was always my baby. So certainly, I was never about to abandon it or let it go by the wayside.
Yeah.
And because I've been the route, the other route before, working with other people and realizing how fickle some of them can be. And so I wasn't about to, let go of Old Faithful, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I remember when I started my show, and I still remember 20 years ago getting emails from your publicist back in those days. I definitely remember those emails. In hearing the band back then. Back then, you didn't have electronic press kits, but you'd send CDs. I actually have a couple of the CDs that were sent to me. So, I mean, the band, it's just one of those things where it's always going to be there with you. And in between, when people have things going on, you might do other projects, like you said, Omen, Banshee, Clovenhoof, some of this other stuff that you've done. So clearly, you haven't really stopped. It's now you have another album. And I'm really looking forward to checking it out. Actually, it's going to be, it'll be a fun release. Now, are you putting it out yourself, or do you have a label that's going to be putting it out?
We actually have a label, but we don't know if we want to do it that route again. The last four were, the last one was released via label, and the prior ones were, licensed and released via label. And we've done, with the last 2-3 albums, they were, they all went out on labels, and I've got to be honest, I'm not overly impressed with what labels can do for you. We used to do it when we first started. We would release it ourselves and stuff. And I got to tell you, man, why let a label make the money off of you and pay you very minimally, and then try to retain the rights for the album, and then when you're gone, you have to fuss and fight with them not to put it out without your consent and whatnot. So we are very strongly debating not doing the traditional label route.
Yeah.
Release. Now, we may relent, but since time is clearly not of the essence, being that it's going to be forever to get vinyl released, and I've noticed that whenever we did things ourselves, we made a lot more money. Clearly we're not. If we were in it for the money, we wouldn't be playing, U.S. power or hard rock metal, heavy metal. We wouldn't be doing that if that was our primary focus and interest.
Right.
That said, people want to be, recompensed for their efforts. You don't just do it for, let's do it for free. Yay. No, nobody's doing it. You want to get, you want the reward for the effort, in whatever way it takes. And you certainly maximize that when you are your own label, when you do the, and I'll tell you this, to this date, even though much of our stuff has gone on labels and whatnot, we retain 100% of the rights to all of our releases. All of our music belong to Aska. They don't belong to anybody but Aska. And that's the way we want to keep it. Right. So even if we do a label, we'll do it like we did like we've always done it, which was a licensing deal. We license our product out. We retain full ownership. We retain the full rights. You get to license it, release it for 2 years, and then the license reverts to the band. To re-license to whoever we choose at that point, or renew a licensing deal with them, or do it with someone else. So we've always, been, the owners of our masters and our, our work. And that's the way it will always be. So, if we decide to license it out, the interest is there, the offers are there, there's a deal on the table, but, it's something for us to consider strongly, to reverting to doing it the way we've always done it. Or the way we've done it in the past, where it was most profitable. Profits were maximized, and everybody in the band was far more fired up. I mean, I think the band seemed to be hungrier before we started doing things via labels.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
It was, so.
Well,
a little insight there for you.
Well, the subject I was going to go to next was the older albums. Have you thought about maybe reissuing any of those? Because some of those are difficult to get.
Yeah, they're extremely difficult, and but for a reason. Pantera in their time, they didn't the albums they made prior to signing with Atco or whoever they signed with. They didn't want those things out there. They just kept them off the market. They thought, and for a lot of the same reasons, we're kind of that way. I mean, our first album definitely shows a band in its infancy. So I'm always like, well, those people that were lucky enough to be there at the very beginning, and they picked up those records when they were out, the CDs, the cassettes, then lucky them. But do we really want to it's an easy moneymaker for us. Every 6 months I get offers from labels to re-release those, to put them back out, to do them with bonus tracks, and from a collector's perspective, from a fan's perspective, I like to do that for them. But then again, those were not our finest moments. We were a band in our infancy. We weren't very good. I hadn't quite developed as a singer. And though the songwriting I think was there, we were extremely varied in our approach. Our rule back then was we had 3 of the 4 guys sang lead vocal, so we would split the vocals. One guy, I would do one song, another guy would do another song, another guy would do another song, and our approach was, if it's metal, it fits in any of the categories we like, be it power metal, pop metal, glam metal, whatever, heavy, whatever it may be. If we liked it and everybody approved of the song, it was likely to end up on our album. So we were very disparate. We were a disparate band. We were all over the map musically. And when we initially started shopping our first record and then our second record, some of the rejections on there were, man, you guys are cool, but we don't know where to categorize you. We don't know what niche to put you in. You guys are all over the musical map. Some of the songs were even like rock and roll sounding and stuff. So, it wasn't until later that we started getting a direction and focus. And then by our 4th album, we actually said, enough of the multiple guys splitting the album into a third of, I do these songs, you do these songs, let's concentrate with one singer, one direction, one focus, one, recognizable sound, to the band where I go, oh yeah, there's George Cole singing. That's Aska. And a lot of the bands that I, sang for, in addition to Aska, were often compared to Aska. Oh, these guys sound like Aska. This is very much sounds like Aska. This is Banshee meets Aska, Clovenhoof meets Aska. And of course that was going to happen because it's my voice. The voice is one of the most identifiable features for any band. So, when Ian Gillan was singing with Black Sabbath, people were calling it, Deep Sabbath or, Black Purple or, whatever,
right.
Whatever, because such an identifiable characteristic in his voice that, how could you think of anything but? So that, I think it's a good thing. And that's, I think that covers that. Or am I forgetting something?
No, not at all. I mean, I get it. I understand with that because, if you ever thought about re-recording some of the songs, like maybe a couple tracks that you liked off of those albums, and maybe re-record them on, maybe a newer album or as a bonus track or whatever.
We've thought about. I mean, the second album, the second album could be released as is.
Okay,
it's a great record. Sounds good. And it's quite controversial too, and especially in today's day and age, it could be considered extremely controversial. There's songs about underage sex. There's songs about reverse discrimination. There's songs about, there's all manner of subjects that today might be considered, oh my gosh. So if we were to re-release one of them, it might be that second record. And we've strongly considered that. The first one, I actually thought about, how some bands they'll re-release an album and then they'll have the original mix and then a remixed version or a reworked version included with the deal. I've thought about maybe something like that. Maybe take that first album. If we do put it back out there, do, the original version and then do a revamped or a new version and include it together in the same package, So that it might be, an approach to take. It might be something viable.
Sure.
That we do, if we do it. But, at this juncture, I think that first album is so far from where we've ended up. And it was horribly produced. It wasn't mixed well. I think that more than other, because I've actually gone back and listened to, in debating whether to re-release that record. I've gone back and listened to some of the early rough mixes, and to me, they sounded better and had more feel than what we ended up putting out with that the self-titled,
right? Yeah, I gotcha. So I'm going to move on to something different now. So you obviously have seen some of my podcasts and stuff, and then obviously you saw.
Always fun.
What's that?
Always fun and interesting. I enjoy your podcast, and I do enjoy your viewpoints because I feel you're one of those guys that tells things. You speak your mind without fear, and that's the kind of people I like. I like a guy that's honest, that's forthright, that doesn't BS and dance around the subject, or
right.
You know what I mean? I like that kind of thing. Some people don't.
So
we've got a segment of the population that wants to be lied to.
Yeah, well, that's probably most. That's probably most of the population. But anyhow, all right. So I have to. I'm going to bring this up. The whole Clovenhoof thing. And I'll bring it up with you because number one, obviously it directly had to do with you. Number one, but number two, I had a couple of former members that were like wanting to come on the show, but I didn't want to turn it into like a Clovenhoof like bitch fest, right? So I kind of said what I needed to say. I don't need people. I didn't need a bunch of people coming on and just telling me I was right or want to air out, grievances and say the same thing over and over again. So I really didn't bring it up since then, but since it directly affected you, I'm going to do that. So I guess tell your side of this story and what actually happened. And, let's talk about this. So what actually happened with this? I mean, was there anything that I said it was off base? Did anything come off as, that it wasn't true, or maybe that I heard wrong about, as far as what actually happened? So talk about that.
Not that I'm aware of. I thought you were pretty spot on. I will say this, whatever animosity Lee Payne feels towards me is, at this point, I don't, which, maybe or may not, I think he feels like I was out dissing the band, or what was it? What were his words? He said that he doesn't like his word for diss. He doesn't diss former members. He doesn't talk smack about former members. Is that? Do you remember the actual verbiage that he used?
I don't know. I don't remember.
That he doesn't talk smack about. Well, I think he feels like I was out talking smack about him, and that certainly has never been the case. I've never talked smack about Lee Payne. He is one of my musical heroes. I like the guy to this day. I like Lee Payne. And I'm certainly, when I air my side of something that happened, it's not talking smack. It's just talking truth.
Sure.
I'm just telling the story. I'm just telling what happened. If somebody takes it, it's like, I view it a lot like those people that are upset that the videos have come out about the January 6th, quote, insurrection. And there's people, how dare you show that? How dare you show that? Hey, we're just showing the truth. I mean, if the truth upsets you, then that says more about you than it does about the person telling the story. So, that said, all I did was tell my side of the story and how it played out.
So how did this play out? Like talk about what happened, what exactly happened, like from your side of things and what you experienced and how this whole thing came up. Talk about your whole side of the story and actually what really transpired. I mean, you don't have to this isn't like a bashing session. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not out to bash anybody, but I will tell the story and then, let the chips fall where they may. What happened here is for years, we're all familiar with the Keep It True Fest. I played it 3 times. I played it with Omen. I played it with Aska. I met Lee Payne from Clovenhoof backstage at Keep It True. When he saw me with Aska and was, at that point, took interest in me. And as a fan, as a musician, whatever. We met, and I'm a fan. I'd known all their stuff before. I owned the albums. I had him sign my stuff. But sometime after that, Ollie, who runs Keep It True, after my third appearance there, my third appearance there was as a headliner. So after my third appearance there, at some point he took some offense to something I did. Now,
who'd you headline it with, out of curiosity, the third time?
Omen.
Okay.
Omen. I headlined it with Omen.
Okay.
And so he took umbrage to what I thought, but I mean, I've heard he tells a different story these days, and he's never confronted me directly, but what I understood it to be was the way that it ended, that my time in Omen ended, because it wasn't the most amicable thing. It was quite a bit acrimonious, and especially when they're not the singer that I directly replaced, but there had been a singer prior that was replaced with another singer. I replaced that singer, and then when I was replaced by that singer 2 posts removed, who came back to the band. And, he had been saying things about me, and I responded. I've never been one to turn the other cheek. I don't ascribe to that. And maybe one of the reasons why I like President Trump so much, when somebody throws a rock at you, I throw 2 back, and so that's how it works. And it's certainly, I'm not the first guy in the history of rock and roll or metal to do so, and I'm not the last. I mean, these kind of acrimonious splits have been happening since the dawn of time. Van Halen, on and on ad infinitum. Van Halen with Rob, Van Halen with Hagar. I mean, there was the Stone cast, the Kiss guys, the Metallica guys, guys. you name it, this has happened. The Riot guys, Sandy Slavin is, not happy with the guys, but it's just par for the course, right? This happens. So I thought that his issue with me was the way I left Omen, and he feels that I had disrespected the original singer and everything. But hey, man, I didn't do anything to them that hadn't been done to me. I didn't say anything to them that they didn't say to me. Or, so anyway, it was what it was. We moved on, and then it was over. And I just knew that at that point, he went around telling people bands that I joined or bands that I'd signed up with. I was with Emerald, I was with Banshee. I'm with Banshee. Banshee can play here, but not with George Cole. Clovenhoof can play here, but not with George Cole. He'd been making those types of overtures or whatnot. Whenever bands inquired about playing his festival, or vice versa, he told them I couldn't. So basically, I was persona non grata at his festival. I later ran into Ollie at the Frost and Fire Fest in Ventura, California, that I was performing at. And when I saw him there, I tried to make peace with the guy. I said, dude, this is like 10 years old. Whatever aggravated you, let's move beyond this. Let's move past this nonsense. And I tried to shake his hand and make things right with the guy because, I do actually believe in metal brotherhood and people moving on and, metal before other things, and it's not just lip service for me. It's real. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this still to this day if not, but he wasn't interested. I did not come here to talk politics. I came here to watch a show and have a good time. Okay, man, whatever, dude. Well, let's shake hands. Let's do an olive branch here, a peace offering. And he refused.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Lee of Clovenhoof was standing right next to me when that happened. And when I told him, when we were in Ventura, and I told him, look, there's Ollie. I'm going to go talk to him. Come with me if you like. I'm going to go talk to him and try to make peace with this guy because this garage he's harboring or carrying on is ridiculous. He wasn't interested. And Lee was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Let's go and talk to him. And he's got no interest. He doesn't want to make it right with you. They're British, so I got effectuate that accent.
I got
you. So he was interested. Now, I've heard through the grapevine. Now, I always thought that was the issue. Now, since that time, I heard through the grapevine that his issue was actually not that. His issue with me was that I tried to molest or sexually assault or rape a girl in Germany and blah, 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 this and that. And I'm like, really? Because the girl he claimed that supposedly that I understand that he claims was the girl that I tried to do, there she is on my Facebook friends as of last month, a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a week ago. There she was wishing me happy birthday. So how did I try to rape, assault, or do something to somebody that's wishing me happy birthday and has been on my Facebook friends the whole time, the entire time it continues to be?
Right.
So somebody's got their wires crossed or somebody. I think he's just, I do believe that his issues with me have nothing to do with what he claims are his issues with me. He's got other issues with me that are not disclosed, and what they are, who knows? And frankly, at this point, I don't care. He's not the only game in town, and if he was, then I'd make my own festival.
So have you?
But the bottom line is,
have you tried reaching out to that dude? Aside from that show, have you ever tried reaching out to him, or he just flat out refuses to talk to you?
Yeah, you know what? I reached out to him prior. He was not interested. He blocked me on Facebook.
Okay.
And then when I saw him in person, I felt like, hey, man, I'm nobody to shy away from anyone or anything. I went right up to him, stood right in front of him, man to man. Let's put this behind us. Let's bury this axe. What's the problem?
Yeah.
If the issue is my my having departed Omen, that was 10 years ago. And we've all, and, Omen and myself, we've all moved beyond that. I'm friends with every single guy I played with in Omen, except the leader of the band, Every other guy I talk to, I'm friends with. So, what's the issue? Why are you and I having this issue when I have no problem with him? If the deal is, and no, this didn't come up then because I didn't know about this, but if the deal is that supposedly I was, handsy with a girl in Germany, well, I'm friends with the girl. The girl just wished me happy birthday.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's the problem? If it was truly what you're claiming, that she wouldn't be wishing me happy birthday, she wouldn't be on my friends list, and there wouldn't be, So I do believe it's something else. And I think after trying in person, I'm not groveling, I'm not begging, and I see no more reason to have to reach out to this guy.
Right.
He's made his desire clear. He wants nothing to do with him. Let's honor his request.
Yeah, right. And again, I don't know the dude, so I can't really give you an opinion on him one way or the other. Now, but obviously, Clovenhoof decides to go and play a show without you. I thought that was a little bit crazy, when I heard that. And I thought that was like out in left field, because I think what was weird about it is before I saw that you said you were out of the band, and I think I missed the post actually, but then I saw a video of them playing live at that festival with a different person. And I'm like, what happened to George? Like, they didn't announce any. See, the thing is, they didn't announce anything on their page that you were gone. You just suddenly just weren't there. It's like you didn't exist anymore. And so talk about how that situation happened. And did you know that they were going to do this prior to that, or did they just play it and not tell you?
No, I knew. I was fully aware of it, which is why I had made my post a month or two earlier saying that I was out of the band, because it was clear to me that Lee was going to do that show. And now, Lee, having stood next to me as my metal brother in arms, who I've done touring with and, been there as a shed blood, sweat, and tears with the guy, recorded, 3 full albums with him, did tours, drove the van, sold the merch, did the meet and greets, the interviews, everything asked of me, I did with a smile on my face and with bells on my hands and feet, You couldn't have asked for a better guy. And no drugs, no drinking, no additional, no issues. Really the only thing you have to deal with is that Ollie didn't want me to keep it true. So what was presented to me well before Keep It True ever came along was, hey, we've been offered Keep It True, and there's a management company that wants to see us. This management company must see us at Keep It True. And nowhere else. And they want to sign us. And so we're going to go ahead and do this show. No other way to tell you, George, but, we're going to do it without you. And we're going to go ahead and play this thing. And the management company, then they'll take us, and then we'll be able to continue on with full backing of this management company and money and all this behind us, and these power players pushing the band and whatnot. And I'm immediate. I mean, I've got a pretty good bullshit meter after dealing with record labels and management companies and shady promoters and people that'll promise you the moon. And it didn't sound right to me, because to me it's like, okay, you're going to go showcase the band for this new management company, even though the band's been in existence for 30 years, or more. And we've got 3 albums that we put out that they can just pick up and listen to. And we've done a multitude of tours and festivals throughout Europe, Canada, and the US. Even with all that, they want to see the band live, but they don't want to see it with the singer. They want to see it with somebody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I called BS on that one in my video, in my podcast. So
yeah, so I felt that was very disingenuous. Now, that said, I 100% sympathize with Lee. The pandemic had stopped the band cold. We had, prior to the pandemic, we had tours in Europe. We had a cruise ship that we were supposed to play. We had all kinds of. We had just done Greece. We'd been doing Spain, Portugal. We'd played Belgium, Germany, France. We'd played England. And festival. We did True Line Fest. We did Blast from the Past Fest. We did the British Steel Fest. We did, Hard Rock Hell Fest. We did, all manner of shows and festivals. So this that all promoters in Europe don't want you now, that was complete BS. We've done all these things. We've been doing all this. But the pandemic hit, and I understand. Clovenhoof was sidelined at that point for 2 years. Having a singer, an American singer on the other side of the world, and them in England, certainly that, the band couldn't play. It couldn't do local gigs. It certainly couldn't do tours. And I think after 2 years, Lee was chosen. It also didn't help. It adding fuel to the fire, or gasoline to the, to the explosion. This edition of Keep It True was the new wave of British heavy metal edition.
Right.
So I think that it struck all of the chords, and he wants to be part of this show. He wanted to. He's part of this movement. He's a British band. He's one of the perennial bands, and one of the bands that's still doing something of relevance today. We just released 3 albums in modern times,
right?
And all of them very well received, beloved by many of the fans and press. So we were, by all accounts, we were doing very well. But I know after not playing for 2 years, and after having this potentially very nice gig being offered, or he didn't want to pass that up. And he didn't want to pass it up to the point where he felt, I don't mind putting George's membership in this band in jeopardy because I want to do this.
Right.
He wanted to do it. And I totally understand why he wanted to do it.
Sure.
Okay? I get it. That said, for my own sense of pride, I know what I bring to the table. I know what I've brought to the table with Hoof. And I know, my value as a member of any band, because it goes, believe me, it goes beyond just the singing or being the front man or whatever.
Right.
Because there's so much behind the scenes, that I bring to the table. It was through me that Clovenhoof was able to tour America for the first time, tour Canada for the first time. It was, while we were here, it was my trailer that got us around, my gear, my guitar that the guitar players were playing. I was crucial to so much, to making things possible for the band in America and in Canada. So, and of course, doing every bit of that was required of me in Europe, So that, that said, I couldn't get behind this because I felt doing the show, as much as he wanted to do it, I felt was a bit of a slap in the face to me, because you're basically going to do a show for a guy that says, you can't do it with your lead singer. You can't do it with, I don't care if you've done 3 albums with this guy. I don't care who he is. I don't care how important he is in your band. He can't play my stage. He can't play my festival. That's his prerogative. He can have whoever he wants on his stage, right? Let's keep it true. It's his stage. But at that point, my band that I'm in should have said, well, then we respectfully decline, or we wish you would change your mind. Why punish the band? But I think that's the point, right? The point is, I'm going to punish your band,
right,
until you come to my way of thinking and screw George, and then I'm happy. Which is, that to me is, that's not metal brotherhood. I don't care what you say or how you sell it. That guy is not. There's no metal brotherhood there, and I'm not the only band that he's pulled that with. The who's who is quite impressive and longer by the day. Okay, there was even a time when he was into it with his with the guy he likes very much, which is Terry Conklin. Ollie got into it with him over some deal, but that's not my story to tell. So, we'll leave it there. That's and I think they've moved past their differences, which he's not done with me. But for my band to do that, I felt was a betrayal of my membership, and so I felt, well, if you want to do a show without me, then clearly you don't value my membership or anything that I've done for this band. So I told him, I said, if you insist on doing the show, then there will be a consequence, right? There will be a response on my end. Now, will I quit? I don't know, because I haven't thought it through completely at this point. But I just know, I'm telling you, I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like that it plays into Ollie's devious thing. I don't like that it plays into his band, into his dismissal of me. And certainly my friends shouldn't, and more so my bandmates shouldn't capitulate to a guy that is all but banned your singer,
right.
Now, does that punish Clovenhoof? Is it, at that point, maybe he thought, well, I'm going to cut the chaff. I don't need that. I don't need a guy that's dissed by this guy in the band or whatever. So, he took his chance. He rolled the dice and took the chances. I don't think he cared at that juncture one way or the other. And you know why I say think? Because I don't know, because the minute, I announced when it was very clear to me that they were going to go ahead and do the show, and make no mistake, Lou, Chris, Ash, Dando, the other guys in the band, they don't call those shots. That band is run by Lee Payne, nobody else. He makes the decision. It's not the other guys in the band. He decides what the band does, what the band doesn't do. So when it became clear to me that he was going to do it, and he told me, I'm doing the show. Then that's when I made my announcement. Well, I'm out of the band. I posted it on my page, and I was very respectful with everyone in the band. I gave much props and love to Lee and the other guys in the band, and I respectfully withdraw. And that was that, right? Then they did the show. So it was no surprise to me. I thought Chris Dando, the singer, did a fantastic job. He did great. So the band had moved on. Of course, when people saw that, though, like you, I think the vast majority of Clovenhoof fans that have been following the band's progress in the last 6 years or so, and been coming to our shows and the concerts and festivals that we'd appeared at, we're like, whoa, what's going on here? Who is this guy? There was no announcement from the band themselves. There was no, other than my simple announcement on Facebook, most people really didn't know that I left the band.
Right.
And they they said nothing about it. So, and you've covered those topics. So people were perplexed and mystified, and then found out that I don't think they even found it. They still didn't know. Yeah. Well, they appeared with some guy. It was good. I don't know who this guy is. Where's George Cole? That was, and immediately I was inundated with messages. Whoa, where are you? Whoa. Because most people did not see my post.
It's kind of like that scene in Spinal Tap where they kidnap the drummer. He just disappears out of nowhere. George Cole's gone. And, you know, I'll tell you what, the thing that I had the issue with the most, and I can honestly speak to this because I've had it happen to me. In fact, when I left the magazine that I was doing photography for, they never really did this. And that is, they never announced that you were pretty much gone. They didn't say, hey, thanks for contributing on the last 3 albums. Because to me, I would have never said anything about it. Right. Like I would have never said anything about it if they had said, you know, if it was a parting of the ways, hey, look, it doesn't work out, difference of opinion. It happens with bands. You know that as well as I do. And if they just would have said, hey, thanks for George for doing a great job on these last 3 records, boom, it's not a story. I would have never even commented on it. I would have been like, okay, that's that. Let's move on. But it's like they wanted to just almost eliminate the fact you existed on these last 3 records that to me are the 3 best albums the band has ever put out. And they were subsequently better as time went on. You know, Time Assassin, I mean, it was in my top albums of the year list. I mean, it was a great record. I mean, you know, a great band. And I have nothing against anybody. I just think that it was a very poor way of handling the situation. And on top of that, I think it was a slap in the face to you. And then at the same time, I think you had this streak of really good albums. And as much as I think Harry Conklin's an amazing singer, I mean, if he's a temporary dude who's going to be on the next album, I mean, they just killed the momentum and continuity that they had going for them. And I really, you know, I think the next album will probably still be pretty good, but you know, the singer, let's face it, as unfair as it may be, they are always the face of the band. And the Clovenhoof for the first time was really building this identity, you know, and that identity was squashed over a decision over somebody that has some ridiculous beef with you over who knows what. Right. So I think that now if they would have announced, you know, because you know how it is in press releases with bands, they'll say, hey, we parted ways with somebody. I can speak to this full hand that, you know, that's all they say, but obviously stuff happened behind the scenes. But typically after that, nobody says anything again. It's not a story. Right. It's not, people aren't going to sit here and wonder, but when you conduct your business in a way where you don't even announce that, hey, dude's not in the band anymore, we parted ways, you don't say anything good or bad, didn't say anything. That's when people get curious, and that's when it becomes a problem. And then when it all comes out that this is the way it went down, it just makes your band look bad. It really does. It makes you look bad. And it's sad because I think it's a great band. You know, when I look at Clovenhoof's like catalog, I don't really think there's any really bad albums, right? I mean,
I agree.
they've made great stuff since since their debut.
They've made great stuff. I mean, I was a fan. I mean, I was tailor made for that band because I'm not just the guy that some singer they found. I was a fan of the band. I met Lee saying, will you sign all my records? I gave him a stack of 5 or 6 CDs to sign, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like I was familiar with the material. I was a fan of the guy. Yeah. I loved being in the band. I mean, I'm a metal fan, you know, underground metal fan. I have been for years. So you almost can't create somebody like that for your band, you know? So I think it was a great fit. Again, I never had any issues with Lee. I felt he was a brother and a very dear friend. And so I was surprised when my friend, who had been there watching me try to make peace with this guy that was being totally highly unreasonable, would not, you know, would go inside with that. You know, I mean, I didn't get it. So I say, well, clearly he doesn't value me as a friend, as a band member, or maybe even a person. Mm-hmm. And it was almost put into bas relief when, after I reiterated that I have left the band and that I'm no longer in the band, the day after, the appearance when everybody was messaging me and I had to remake a statement that, no, I left Clovenhoof a month, 2 months ago. Here's the post,
Yeah.
And I'd say, yeah, blah, blah. He unfriended and blocked me that day and removed my name from the page, which is, hey, it's his band, he can do what he wants, but there was not even a message and a communication exchange because people on the comment section in my post were saying, Lee is this and Lee is that. Hey, I don't, I'm not, if there's one thing I'm not, it's a censor. I don't censor other people's thoughts, and I don't speak for anybody but myself, right? I only speak for myself. In no way was I rude or disrespectful to Lee or anyone in the band. And again, that said, other people, they're going to have their opinions and their thoughts, and they're going to say what they believe and what they think. And I'm not going to go in there and police their thoughts or erase their commentaries or, I'll give you an example of this. When we released Age of Steel, there was a couple songs on there that I felt were an homage to Iron Maiden, the greatest, new wave of British heavy metal export from the UK that the world has ever seen, and remains to this day. And some people in the comments on the songs on YouTube were going, "Oh, this is an Iron Maiden ripoff," or this, they were being less than flattering and accusing the band of plagiarism and of this, that, and the other, and whatnot.
Yeah.
I was more than fine leaving those comments on there.
Yeah.
I had no issue with those comments. Now, the comments were turned off. The comments disabled. I didn't do that. It had nothing to do with me. And so who did it? I don't know. The label at Lee's BS, Lee, I don't know. But I'm the kind of guy that, hey, man, people can speak their mind. People have opinions. Not everybody's going to think like we are. Not everybody's going to like us. Not everybody's going to think that, we shit gold. Some people don't like us, and that's fine. They can express that opinion too. I'm an American. I come from America where people have a freedom of press and thought and speech and everything else. And I actually enjoy for everybody to have their voice and have their say. And whether it agrees with my point of view or not, I don't mind that. I don't want to shut the other side down. I don't want to silence them. I don't want to stop them from speaking their mind. And if, I didn't feel hatred towards Lee or dislike whether our friendship was over, but other people, fans, my fans, or people that felt the whole situation was unfair, were not very kind in their commentaries. Mm-hmm. Well, that's no reason to unfriend me. Why don't you block the people that are saying the bad thing? No, he blocked me.
Well,
so it is what it is.
I think to me, blocking somebody for something like that, I just think, it feels like cowardice to me, right? You're hiding. You create the situation. He really is the one that created the situation. If you think about it, he allowed it to happen. The festival promoter, it's his festival. He can do whatever he wants, right? He has the terms. You have to ultimately agree to the terms. Okay. Yeah, and, if he wants to run it, hey, he's been successful at doing it for a very, very long time and even making it work during a time where it's really difficult. But he could set his own terms. You have to agree to play to the terms. And I think that was the other issue that I had. You can blame, people can blame Ollie and all this stuff all they want, but the fact of the matter is Ollie wasn't like forcing him to say, yes, I'm going to play the show. Right. He wasn't doing it. It's the analogy of, if your wife cheats on you, who are you mad at? The guy she's cheating with or your wife? Because the guy she's cheating with he didn't make vows with you. He didn't vow to love you. So you got to be mad. You got to be. Yeah, and the guy may not even. In that case, I mean, some guys don't even know, right? I mean, they get lied to. But
Yeah.
I guess my point is that he ultimately is the one responsible for creating the situation, right? Because he could have just said no. I'm not
by
going to do
accepting
it.
all these terms. I mean, for me, Ollie sets the ground rule. You know, he made the terms, and at that point, Lee had the choice too. Well, then you won't. Then Clovenhoof sadly can't play your festival till you change your mind. You know, he could have had some solidarity with me, stuck it out, showed some, you know, blood bonding and friendship and brotherhood and the spirit of metal, you know, by sticking it out with the guy that had given him three. I'm the only guy that has given him 3 consecutive albums in all the years that Clovenhoof has been together.
Yeah.
They've never had a guy sing more than 2 records.
Yeah,
consecutively. I was the first.
And the thing is, first of all, I have never heard of anything ever happening like this. I don't think I've ever heard a promoter going out, number one, and saying, "Hey, you can't play with this guy in your band, and I don't like him, and I have a different reason every time someone asks me." Yeah,
it is very petty, very petty. You know, even if I didn't like a promoter, I would still do a show. I would still do a show for them. I mean, whether I like them or not, whether our personalities clash, whether we have differences on politics, sexuality, music style, whatever it may be, what food, you know, vegetarianism versus, you know, being an omnivore. Who cares? Who cares? It's a music business.
Yeah.
And well, he chooses not to do, he'll do business with people that have murdered people that have done terroristic things, people that have said and done other things, but not with me. And it's not just with me. Again, there is a list, and we could rattle them down. But you know, I think people that know. You know, Ollie is, you know, he's a character.
I don't think we need to get into. We don't need to get into the list. I mean, but yeah. To me,
the guy is. I mean, it's a word.
Yeah, to me, in the end, it's just a shame. I mean, I think it's utterly just. I mean, life is pretty short to really keep carrying grudges on like that, and you know, I just think, I honestly think it's just a shame. I mean, that people act like this, and unfortunately, you know, I understand the dynamic, and you know, the metal scene is nowhere near as bad or as toxic as other things out there. I just think, I just completely think that it's just a shame of the way things went down, because I just thought Clovenhoof was on this streak of great records, and I still think they're going to sound good. I think Harry's going to do a great job with it. I'll still go out and get the next record. So it's not like I'm going to sit here and like ban them. You know, really, if I really think about it, this is really my only real issue, right? But at the same time, I just think the way it was handled, and the way that just the whole way this whole thing was handled was terrible. I mean, you couldn't really have handled it any worse. And I don't know. It feels to me like if this kind of decision making has been going on for 30 years, you know, then, you know, this band would be a lot further, you know, because here's the thing, dude, talent is not the problem in that band. That band, talent wise, I don't care what lineup you've had in the band. I couldn't, you know, what era of the band, talent is definitely not the issue. Songwriting,
I agree.
Songwriting's definitely not the issue. You know, the quality of the music that they write is not the problem. It's the decision making.
It's the shuffle, the constant shuffle when you should stay. You know, it's like, okay, shuffle, cut, shuffle, cut, shuffle, cut.
Yeah,
man, hold your hand, man. You're doing good with this hand. You know, it might not be four kings or 4 aces in there, but you've got a good hand. Hold on to that, sucker. Don't throw that away. You know, don't discard and try your luck again. You know.
Yeah.
You know, at some point you've got to have the wisdom to know when you've got a good thing going. You know, and again, and certainly this is I say this to you because you asked. I certainly don't want anybody to ban Clovenhoof or to not support them or not buy their next record. the band, as you say, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm a fan of this band. They've put out album after great album. I was a fan from day one, album number one.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think the next album's going to suck. I don't think the next album after that's going to suck. Lee will not put out something that sucks.
No,
he
not
is
at all.
the penultimate musician. He's a brilliant songwriter. He's a great judge of talent. But then again, he doesn't know when to say when.
Yeah,
there's a point where you just got to say, okay, man, we're good. We're good. This is good.
So I don't want to be Dr. Doom of the whole thing with Lee, but I will say this: there is something that you just did bring up. You are correct on one thing that he has done a very good job of, and that is getting the right people and the right talent in the band to make the albums. I mean, with all the members he's gone through, which I think it's like 27 or 20, I can't remember, but he has at least brought guys in that were talented, that worked well with the music that was being written. So, again, I don't dislike the band. To me, I just think the situation with you was handled wrong. And it's
agreed.
sad. I mean, that's really what it is. They've put out, great records. I mean, I even like the debut where they were all like a different element on the planet, right?
Love that. Yeah.
Yes.
I even talked to Lee about kind of bringing that back, but we discussed it, we talked about it, and we didn't do it in the end. But here's what it comes down to, because you're right. The next album will be a great album. It's got Harry the Tyrant Conklin. How could it not be? And it's got Lee Payne with his set of songs, and once again Chris Dando behind the mixing and producing board. It's going to be a good record. It will. Yeah. Bless you.
Yeah, and
bless you.
And Chris has done a very good job on engineering the records, and that's,
he really has. He's a brilliant. I love Chris. I think he's a great guy. And he's one of those guys that I have worked with, and he's just brilliant behind the board. He's brilliant on stage. He's a brilliant keyboard player. He's a brilliant singer. Just a great guy. For him to be dismissed so casually, well, you can be the keyboardist now. All these kind of things. But that's the end of there. The point I'm trying to make is it will be a good album. The difference is if he'd made an album with me, it would have been another great album that retains and maintains the continuity of the band to this point.
Right. Correct.
And that has value to some people in the metal world, because metal fans, we're not singles fans. We don't buy a single and then forget about the band. We are metal fans. We buy albums. We follow bands. We learn who's in it. Who are the members in this band? I want all the records. I want the full collection. I want, whether this album sucks or not, I want to put it in my deal, in my collection. And they want to know who's singing. They want to be able to identify a band, and they want to know who the singer is, and they want continuity. They want that glue. They don't want a different guy every record. Yeah. And Harry's already announced, I'm helping out.
Yeah.
I'm here with a favor to a friend. It's got to be a blow, when you just announced, oh, great news, everybody. Harry Conklin's going to do the new record. And then 10 minutes later, Harry puts out a thing saying, I'm just doing this as a favor to a friend, please. My number one is Jack Panzer.
Well,
that took the wind out of the sails a little bit.
Yeah, I had some. Well, when I recorded my podcast on a few months ago, I had a couple people fire back at me on about certain bands, right? And some of the bands that they were talking about were like exceptions to the rule, right? Like for example, Annihilator's known for having different vocalists, right? I mean, that was one of the bands someone was throwing at me. Yngwie Malmsteen, but Yngwie Malmsteen's more of a solo artist. And then when every time people bring up Megadeth, you're like, that you can kind of make a point, but guess what? Dave Mustaine.
Singer.
It's the singer. It's the singer that really stands out the most for people. And Dave Mustaine, you couldn't have Megadeth without him. So people will say that, but he's bringing guitar players in. But the singer's really, the continuity of the singer is really what matters. As unfair as it might seem, I have all the respect in the world for guitar players, drummers, and bass players, but the singer is what it is, and the people are the face of the band. And I think that that was what I said back in as far as my reply to that. But hey, you know what? I get it. It's water under the bridge now at this point. It's just again, it's a shame it happened because I love the albums he did with them. And I mean, at this point, it is what it is, dude.
Yeah. Speaking of that singer, one of the great examples, and probably the best example that I can give you, is when you look at Black Sabbath. They had every singer they've ever had has been a gold mine singer. You're talking Ozzy, Dio, Tony Martin, Ian Gillan. I mean, you've got this history of these great singers, and people didn't want to know. Even when Dio came on board initially, people didn't want to know because they were so identified with Ozzy as a singer. And then slowly, they accepted Dio.
Yeah.
But they never accepted Tony Martin. As brilliant as Tony Martin was, or Ian Gillan, those records were never accepted by the general public. Or hardcore metal fans, we knew. We were like, wow, listen to Tony Martin.
Or the most forgotten Sabbath singer ever was Glenn Hughes. Remember that?
Glenn Hughes,
Everybody forgets about him.
Right. He gets left out of the equation. But they had brilliant singers, and the public didn't want to know. Yeah. So, yes, I mean, it's important to craft an identity with a singer that people start to go, oh, this is the voice of this band. This is the voice of that band. This is And, having done 3 records in a row, I was starting to be identified as the voice of the band. Yeah. Prior to that, even though there have been many singers that appeared on one album, Matt Morrison had done 2 records. Russ North had done 2 records, left, came back, did some compilation, anthology, whatever.
Yeah.
But so up to that point, Russ was the face of the band. For me, it was, the original singer, it was, I think it was named Potter, David Potter, I believe was his name.
Yeah.
Because that's how I discovered the band was with him. But it was just for me personally, bad move. And I think for the band, no matter how great an album they're going to put out, personally, as a fan, it wasn't the best move.
Yeah.
Whether it was me or anybody else, if it had been a completely different guy that had done 3 records with the band, me as a fan, I would want that to continue, especially if the output was good.
Absolutely.
If it was great output, I would want it to continue. I wouldn't want, oh man, here we go, back to the drawing board. And I can't tell you how many other podcasters, magazine writers, whatnot, have told me the same exact thing. Man, just when this band was starting to have an identity, a new identity, they shuffled the deck again.
Well, I think unfortunately, I didn't see a lot of podcasters about it, but I think a lot of these guys, they get afraid to piss somebody off because then they think, oh, this band's not going to want anything to do with me or whatnot. I don't care. I mean, if they don't want to, if I blackballed myself from them, it is what it is. I'm still buying the record anyway. I mean, whatever, so, but anyway, dude, I got to tell you what, I really appreciate you coming on. I can't wait for your next record, whenever that does come out at some point. And
I'll be back to talk about that then.
We will. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. It's sad, unfortunately, because of the way things are right now that, you can't, obviously you're not, you may not put it out for another year, but at least it's recorded. You could take some time to work on the next one. I mean, that's what I would do.
Absolutely. And that, believe me, that's something that we've been discussing as well. I wish we were all less busy because even, the way I've stayed busy is I'm in multiple bands and whatnot, but the other guys, they've got, their lives to lead, jobs, work, and things that, so everybody in the end ends up, pulled in 20 different directions, but our commitment to Aska is non-wavering. And again, this album will feature the same guys that were on the previous, at least 3/4 of the same guys that were on the previous record, so I try to keep the continuity the same wherever possible. and as much as possible, knowing that is, sometimes it's just out of your hands, it's out of your control. But when it's in your control, I try to do whatever I can to preserve the integrity and the unity of the band, because that has value to me.
Sure.
And I think that has value to, many people in particular in our genre of music, fans of our genre, of heavy metal. They like to have the guys in there. Who wouldn't give their left nut to have Glenn Tipton, back in Judas Priest full time with KK Downing by his side? Whatever their problems may be, who wouldn't just say, wow, I love that, I would. I mean, I'd kill for that. But it's not going to happen,
I got you, man. Well, hey, dude, I thank you. I mean, it's been fun. It really is fun having you on, and I look forward to the next record.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you, Tony. And keep doing what you do, man. I appreciate your candor, your honesty. It's one of the things I like about you over some of the other podcasts that are just geared to sucking up to everyone and anyone,
Yeah.
That is so transparent. It's not even funny. So I think your approach is
sucking up is not something I do, but it just is what it is.
Right.
Well, I always look at it this way. I'll end it off with this: is that I always give criticism where it's due and credit where it's due. Right? I'm not.
Yeah.
And usually if it's a band I'm not into, I just don't talk about them, because again, if it's not something I'm normally into, there's no reason to just go on and just bash them for no reason, right? So I like to be pretty straightforward. It is what it is, and I always tell people where I stand. You want to disagree with me? Great. That's how the world goes to work. But I say things to let people know where I stand on it. And if you want to disagree or agree, you can. I mean, that's pretty much how I look at things.
Right. Well, I appreciate your viewpoint, and I thank you for having me on.